Hello, welcome. Today I'd love to share with you a little exercise um, taking us through the Peak-Vallery-Recovery pattern. If you already watched the first lecture, you know what it's about, but it's a pattern our lives kind of go through in general. Anything that activates the nervous system has a peak, a valley, which is like a dip, and then a recovery period when we um, these things like the peak and the valley exceed the capacity of our nervous system. Our systems go into fight or flight and freeze. So a lot of life is trying to manage the peak and valley of our system within our window of tolerance, which is the bandwidth that our nervous system has to, um, regulate itself and integrate new information. So that is the PVR pattern. So I'd like to do a little exercise today to kind of experience what it's like, in a very small, contained way, what it's like to go through the PVR pattern in a good way. Okay. So what we're gonna do then is just inviting a little bit of sensation into our bodies. Not a ton. We're just gonna imagine some things, imagine some sensations. Okay. Imagining sensations. So what we're gonna do is just take a little bit of time to, in a very small way, very titrated, very gentle way, to experience some sensations in our body in a conscious way. And we're going to go through the PVR pattern, but we're going to try to make sure that, notice, like, how's my system reacting to this part or this part, and kind of bring us back into the window of tolerance in a very gentle way to see, or to actually repattern our body so it learns a new pathway. And we can do this a few times, but even once is probably, like, to be honest, for me, it was really enlightening. So this is the PVR pattern exercise. Okay. So first, I invite you to, if you like to close your eyes, you can keep your eyes open. But you're inviting a sense in your body that things are like this, kind of flat, but underneath there's a little bit of something bubbling up, right? And for some people, this might feel like kind of like butterflies in their stomach, that kind of stuff, right? Maybe it feels like the sensations of meeting somebody new. That's really exciting. So things are bubbling up. And when you notice that bubbling up, I invite you to, like, settle it by, like, maybe wiggling your toes. That has a really great effect of bringing you back down. Maybe you can touch yourself in your lower body, be like, oh yeah, okay. If you've done the higher breathing already, breathing into your belly. And then next we're going to move slowly over to, like, feeling more stimulus, like, we're starting to peak. We're like, we're experiencing a lot of emotion. And then you might feel the emotion rise to, like, your sternum even. We're trying to avoid hitting it here, definitely. So it's hitting our sternum. And when it does, we're at the peak. Start brushing it down. Settling it. Wiggling our toes. Breathing into our belly. And noticing maybe how the peak energy has changed. For me, I often find it really like this warm glow kind of in my belly. It's like, when the peak has settled, it's still like a peak of kind of excitement, but it's contained in a different way. And then next, after savoring that for a little bit, letting ourselves drop to the low. So we're going to the valley. For me, that sometimes brings up, like, grievy feelings up here, maybe a little bit of tension. So we're gonna brush that back down the valley into our belly. Our belly is a digestive organ spiritually too, so we can bring our some feelings that come with the valley, bringing it down into our belly. Again, we can touch ourselves to feel good, self-soothing. Wiggling your toes. And notice how the valley has changed. for me, it becomes just a lot more restful. It moves from kind of like being sad to like, oh, this feels intimate. And as we sit in the valley, you might slowly find things coming up a little bit again. But it's not peaking, it's recovering to the original state in a settled way. Hmm. Yeah, so thank you. So that's the Peak Valley recovery exercise. Just going through that pattern in this gentle way, taking each inflection point, whether it's the peak, the valley, or the recovery period, or even the kind of beginning, kind of homeostatic, like bubbling phase, just in each phase settling our body each time and experiencing the peak and valley recovery and the resting period in more nourishing, more settling ways. This exercise is really great in application. So let's say you have like a huge deadline coming up, or you're about to launch a new project and you're having all these feelings about it, because that's the thing. Everything that activates our nervous system goes through the PVR pattern. So even when you release, let's say, even this course, there's an initial like, oh, boom, all these people register, and then maybe there's like, for a while, like people are like, oh, then there's a little bit of a drop, and then there's a recovery period. A lot of people who do stuff like teach courses, they get caught in like the frenzy of this. And something that helped me even in designing courses is like, oh, okay, so settle, settle, settle. Okay, here, whoa, 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 whoa. And like imagining it, right? Like, oh, things are coming in, da da da. But like settling that, settling that, settling that, and then valley, settling that, settling that, settling that, and then recovery, settling, 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 right? Because what actually happens is that we know, intuitively we know, somatically we know that our bodies go through the PVR pattern, but what happens is that when we haven't repatterned our bodies in an intentional way, often we tend to sabotage ourselves from having nourishing or settled experiences, like, or trying new things out, because our body fears going into a peak value recovery pattern that's can be traumatic for us. And so, or the reverse is that the only way when we finally do try something out is the only way we know how to go through it is like this really wild ride, and yeah, we end up sabotaging ourselves there again. So the peak value recovery pattern exercise, I think, is really enlightening around that. You can even just do it once to be like, oh, okay, this whole thing can be experienced in a totally different way. Very applicable to human relationships, starting new projects, even working with a new client, really anything that engages relationships and nervous systems. The PVR pattern's there, so really, really valuable to repattern how we understand the pattern in our bodies through an intentional exercise. So, yeah, hope this is really helpful and useful to you. Okay, thank you.